Hello, and welcome to another Roofers Coffee Shop Lunch and Learn. My name is Heidi Ellsworth, and I am so happy to bring this Lunch and Learn to you today. We're going to be talking about something that really is going to make a difference in your business because it's comparing products and some of the myths that are out there that really kind of sometimes hurt roofing contractors from going in new directions. So I am so happy to introduce to you Abby Feinstein, who is a senior product manager for commercial roofing. Abby and I have been on a couple of these types of videos in the past, and she has been doing work on labor and time studies that really has changed the industry. I'm so honored to have you here today, Abby. Welcome to this Lunch and Learn.
Thank you, Heidi. I'm honored to be here. It's good to be back.
So the learning objectives for today is first, the difference between self-adhered SBS and TPO. The second one is the results of the time studies for those products. And third, the benefits of self-adhered SBS. This is great stuff. And we want your whole team to be watching this together and have a great discussion of these topics.
I'm Abby Feinstein. As you said, I'm the Senior Product Manager at CertainTeed for commercial roofing. I've been in my role just coming up on 7 years. And before that, I was in a variety of startups ranging from solar to energy efficiency, and actually owned my own contracting business for a brief stint.
That's great experience. That really brings a lot into this product management because you know exactly what's happening out in the field.
Absolutely. The most obvious difference is in the category title. So TPO is one of the more prominent roofing products within single-ply. So as described, it goes down in a single layer. And people don't typically refer to modified bitumen as multi-ply, but that is what it is. So whether you're using traditional built-up roofing or non-modified asphalt, modified bitumen, those systems go down in multiple layers. So at minimum, you're going to have a base sheet and a cap sheet. And getting into BUR, you could get up to 5 plies, something like that. So that's a big major difference. One of the things that people like that kind of continue to swear by modified is the redundancy of it, because in and of itself, both layers, especially if they're both adhered, you have 2 complete layers of waterproofing there.
Yeah, we're compared to a single ply. So what are some of the things that contractors who are watching this should be aware of around the differences in installation of these 2 products?
Well, I think that's where the myths come in, especially when you're talking about SA. When you talk about modified, a lot of people, certainly with BUR, people think back to hot asphalt, very commonly torch, even cold process. But self-adhered is a different animal when it comes to installation efficiencies. That's some of the work that we've been doing over the years to really put our money where our mouth is in terms of labor savings. Of course, single layer is going to be faster than a double layer. And actually, when you get into some of the other differences in the product configurations, how the products are installed, the size of the products, TPO is most commonly found in 10-foot widths. The handling of that product slows down labor efficiencies, both in the field as well as when you get into construction details for flashing. Using a hot air welder, as we've observed and filmed, slows things down. So especially when competing against something that is self-adhered and requires very little to no tools to go down. You can't just go product A versus product B. And we talked about this years ago when we first did our labor study in 2018. There's so many other factors. You cannot forget training. If you put a contractor in front of an SA role that has never touched it, has never been properly trained, of course, they're not going to go faster than somebody that's been doing, you know what I mean, if they've been doing TPO for 10 years.
Exactly. And I think for those who are watching out there, when you think about it, with the self-adhered, you're talking about actually pulling the film off underneath the roll, underneath the membrane. That's kind of a big difference in that installation.
It is a big difference. There are even some manufacturers out there that have a self-adhered TPO, but there's some important differences even there. So you're still heat welding the seams of that product, which is not the case for modified. And again, when you talk to the widths of those products, at the end of the day, you're dealing with like a big sticker. So the bigger you get, the more unforgiving, the more challenging it is. You kind of have to go slower, and that can cut into things. The handling of these products affords a more labor efficient install. So in 2018, CertainTeed hired a third party to go out and observe various roof systems. I think we looked at 13 or 14 different configurations and compare one to the next. We published a white paper on that. I spoke at several conferences on what the findings were. And at the end of the day, those findings were similar to what they were in this time study, which showed that a two-ply modified system, actually both self-adhered or torch, were faster than single-ply systems. A lot of feedback from contractors was like, okay, I get it. That's data that you received, but I just don't believe it. That's not what I see. That's not what I've experienced. But so ultimately we decided, let's just do it again and film it, you know? So we had a credential roofer with CertainTeed that we've known for a long time, but we also knew that he was not a one-trick pony, and he did TPO and was well-versed in lots of roof systems. So we approached him with the opportunity and said, hey, we basically want you to find a job where they will let you put 3 roofs on. We're going to do a fully adhered TPO roof. We're going to do a mechanically attached TPO roof, and we're going to do a 2-ply SA. Same roofers, same level of experience, same number of people, same roof. We did as best as we could to essentially say, here's the same people, and all we're changing. The only difference is the product. How does it fare? How do the times? Once we got there, the roofer, Paul Crandall, explained to us that his approach with self-adhered is that he puts in a 3-ply system using a half lap methodology. So a half lap or a ship lap is basically taking what is normally a 2-inch overlap. So as the rolls go down with modified, you typically have a 2 or 3-inch side lap where they cross over. So if it was a 2-ply system, you would do that with the base sheets. You would come across and do that with the cap sheets. He creates a 3-ply system by making that overlap half. So he actually makes an 18-inch side lap. And by the time you do that all the way across the roof with your base layer, you end up with having 2 plies already because you've made that much of an overlap. And then when he comes across with his cap sheet, it is perceived by CertainTeed and is physically a 3-ply system. So what we were able to do here was project what a standard side lap would have been. So the filming is of an 18-inch side lap. So comparing a 3-ply system half lapped with the 2 different TPO systems. And then we used an extrapolated projection based on previous time trials of a standard 2-inch side lap. If it was just a standard 2-ply, how would have that fare?
In watching the video, you really see that. And it kind of talks about that as it's going through there too. So what did it prove as he came through that?
So starting with what we actually filmed, which was 3-ply, I would say the headline, Heidi, is that the systems are comparable, but there is savings minute to minute, and this was only a 60 square roof. So if you start to extrapolate to larger jobs, these play out to bigger numbers. So with the 3-ply SA, half lap was 15 minutes faster than the fully adhered TPO, and about a half hour, 32 minutes slower than a mechanically attached TPO. And then when you project on what would arguably be considered a more standard approach to installation, so getting back to a 2-ply SA where you just have a base sheet and a cap sheet, at that point we would be faster. In real math, that would have been 18 minutes faster than the mechanically attached TPO, and it would have been almost an hour, so 65 minutes faster than the fully adhered TPO.
Wow. So that, and you talked about this a little bit at the very beginning about the perception, right? The perception from the original time test that we just don't believe it to now videotaping it. Is this a seeing is believing type of situation?
I don't know how it couldn't be, right? I mean, there's nothing faked here. This isn't smoke and mirrors. This is what happened. The other thing that you can't help but see is that it's not just speed. It's what you've ended up with in terms of performance and protection on the roof. So these TPO systems are 60 mils. And if you're talking about 3-ply, I think we're at 280, just shy of 300 mils. And the 2-ply system, 230 mils. So you're getting the speed, but you're also delivering a much higher level of performance. And it's not just thickness, because keep in mind, you're talking about redundancy. So it's 2 waterproofing layers. You're talking about puncture resistance, callbacks. I mean, it's
everything.
Yeah. When you're talking about SA, there's a lot of benefits depending on what pillar you want to talk about when you're a contractor, and they care about different things. We're talking about dollars and cents. You get more jobs, you can get more jobs in, you get on and off the jobs quicker. Safety is key. So obviously, if you're not dealing with an open flame, if you're not dealing with a 300, 400 degree kettle with hot asphalt, there's some benefits there. In terms of being able to market the benefits of the product that you're using, disturbance is huge. So I think anyone would argue that you have a more, even when compared to single ply, if you're fully adhering the single ply with adhesive, you could argue that that's a a better system, if you will, because the roof is fully adhered. It's not just adhered in the seams, but that's a pretty stinky roof, if you will. So if you're working on a building that has occupants, whether it's a hospital or a school or hospitality, self-adhered checks those boxes as well, because there's no smell. So with multi-layer systems and redundancy, you're getting this high level of performance, which honestly, I don't think anybody would argue with. So then I think what you get in advantage to that with SA is no fumes, no flame, and a fraction of the labor.
Let's talk about the faster installs for more jobs. I mean, that makes a big difference.
It is a big difference. So, and of course, depending on how you pay your labor, if you pay for the day versus pay for the hour. But at the end of the day, if you can get in more jobs or get more crews on and off the roof faster, that hits your top line and your bottom line. There's just no argument with that. And when you layer in the increased protection, I don't want to sound naive. I don't think that any roof system is one size fits all. And I think you need to look at the building that you're going on and see both what it needs, how many penetrations it has, how many times is the roof broken up. It is multifactorial. I'm not saying that Flint-Lastic SA should be the only thing that anybody specifies all over the country. That's not the case. But I am saying there is a slew of contractors out there that have completely disregarded modified bitumen as a viable competitive roof offering. And that is also not the case.
Right. Right. And I want to touch on, as we're talking about these benefits, I want to touch on something you said earlier, and that was size of roll. It seems like there would also be a benefit in size of roll, not just in how fast and easy to handle, but also the safety in handling and moving that around on the roof. To me, it seems like that would be a double benefit.
I think that's true. Also, when you think about staging a roof, so you're not getting 10-foot rolls up by hoofing them up a ladder. Also talk about number of people on the roof. So for the time trials, we specifically kept 12 crew people for every day. But that's not really necessary when you're talking about 3-foot rolls. One of the advantages that we hear is that they can put a smaller crew.
Exactly. And just even the weight and just the ability for that crew to move things around and to function.
You're talking about give or take 100 pounds of roll. I mean, if you just wanted to like swag it. So it is something that, especially if you're a tradesperson, you can lift and move and as you need to.
Yeah. It makes it easier and more efficient. Yeah. Okay. Let's talk a little bit about the customers. So building owners and really looking at what the benefits as contractors say are going and looking at the roof, like you said, and realize that modified SA really is a great alternative. How are they talking to the building owners about that? And what are the benefits that the building owners are seeing from that kind of system?
Sure. Well, I think you need to be talking to the right building owners. So when we think about roofing at CertainTeed, we think about asset protection. So if you are a building owner that cares what's in the building, for whatever reason that is, maybe you have computer servers, maybe it's a hospital and you have, very high functioning service being performed. You could be a grocery store where if you have a leak on the floor, it becomes a liability for a trip and fall. At that case, you're not the same kind of building owner that might just be roofing a warehouse, let's say, where there are no speakable assets inside that building. So if what you need your roof to do is protect your assets or not compromising the service that's being delivered, I think then roofers should be talking to the building owner about how the roofing system that they're suggesting is going to afford that. I think any multi-layer system speaks to that because you have the built-in redundancy when you're talking about the waterproofing protection, particularly with SA. Of course, then you start to get into labor savings, which should translate to cost savings. On the one side of the coin, you've got safety for contractors, the fact that there's no fumes and no flames. On the other side, for building owners, that's occupant disturbance. So we do entire jobs while school is in session of Flint-Lastic SA and nobody's the wiser, right? It's not disturbing. The kids don't smell it with the windows.
Right. And I mean, that disturbance of whether it's kids or a hospital or apartments, any of those things allows, especially with what we're dealing with right now, that there's long backlogs. Contractors are trying to fit into schedules to make things happen. And so that's, a huge benefit for not only the building owners, but for the contractors too, to adjust and to deliver when we have so many material shortages and things that are going on out there.
Yeah, I mean, for hospitals, it's a year-round challenge because it's essentially that they're never closed. But for schools, they find that they're trying to do all the things that they need to do to those buildings in 2-3 months when school's out of session. And so with Flint Elastic SA or self-adhered, you can take the pressure off of that and go into the school year to get your roofing done. And it's not going to be a problem. But what you just touched on for material shortages, let's not overlook, right? I mean, through any time during this time period where in some cases TPO has been out a year plus, we've seen 2-3 week lead times. So, I mean, SA is in stock.
Yeah, that's huge right now. And a lot of contractors are looking to differentiate their offerings and be able to adjust and offer. And so this time study, kind of coming back to that, really makes a big difference to prove that, yeah, this is a great alternative if you're not doing it right now. And if you are using it right now, you should be using that in your pitches to your customers to really say, hey, because we're using the modified self-adhesives, we're able to get your stuff done faster and with less interruptions.
Absolutely. The field is the field, and that is very easy to do with SA. You're rolling it out, it's peel and stick. You need to keep things straight, and so forth. But, you're ripping off release film and you're laying it in and using a weighted roller just to make sure you get those air pockets out. But the technique in the field of some other roof solutions would be harder to learn. Whether it's a torch, whether it's a kettle, those are orders of magnitude harder. But even a hot air welder, I mean, you need to kind of get the speed right. You don't want to burn yourself. I'm not saying you have to do rocket science, but there's no tools with SA. I mean, you're putting it down. When you get into the details, which I would say is kind of your next level roofer, that's where I would come back to like basic roofing fundamentals. So doing an inside corner detail or base flashing or pipe flashing, whether you're doing that within the modified sector, torch or hot asphalt, you need to understand how to layer those things in. But the technique required to do that correctly with hot asphalt or a torch is orders of magnitude different from being able to get that to lay the way it needs to with SA. In terms of speed, what I would say is we saw it in 2018 and we saw it again when we reported here. The time it takes to hot air weld those details is significantly longer than putting in a standard SA detail. If you're bidding a job that has a lot of penetrations, whether you're doing TPO or SA, you need to make sure you're bidding appropriately. They take longer than it seems most people think.
Yeah, that makes total sense. And at the end of the day, you are providing the building owners with a roof that not only is faster to install, but also provides more redundancy and is easier in the long term to maintain.
Yes, more redundancy, more thickness, more puncture resistant, and maintaining these roofs. Yeah, I mean, all roofs require maintenance, just like a car. So if there's a misnomer for building owners out there, it would be that you can just put a roof on and forget it. That's not the case. It does need to be maintained, but they're very easy to service. There's also repair mastics and so forth, all very easily.
Excellent. Well, Abby, this is great. Congratulations on another breakthrough. I mean, you already knew it, but it's pretty cool to have it out there on video and be able to really help contractors during this time with all of the challenges that contractors are having out there, whether it's a labor shortage, trained labor, skilled labor, or material shortage. These time trials really show that self-adhered SBS modified bitumen systems, two-ply systems, can make a difference in all of those areas.
100%. It checks all of those boxes. It is easier to train on. Once your roofers are trained, they're getting on and off those jobs quicker, and it's in stock. So we're not talking about pushing jobs out. We're talking about installing roofs right now.
I love it. I love it. Thank you so much for sharing all of this. Thank you for never giving up and always bringing this great information and data to the industry. And I just want to say thank you. It's been a great lunch and learn.
Thanks, Heidi. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. And thank you all for watching. Be sure to get that discussion sheet. This is some great discussion points. How can you make these changes in your business? How can it help you? We're looking forward to hearing back from you. Take a picture while you're watching this lunch and learn, send it to us, and the next lunch will be on us for that lucky contractor. So thank you so much and have a great day. We'll see you on the next lunch and learn from Roofers Coffee Shop.